This podcast deal with mature themes. Viewer discretion is advised.
Well met. This has been Broad, and you're watching Born to be
Cosmo.
Oh, snap.
Welcome to Born to be Cosmo, the podcast where we talk about all things Marvel Snap. And I am here with the Cosmo crew for a very special Thanksgiving edition to give thanks back to... Okay, I'm going to level with you all. We're not giving much thanks back today, which is really kind of feels bad.
You
But
can thank the viewer for listening to all the very fun things we're going to have to talk about regarding Marvel Snap.
thankful for people who listen to us still after all this time, and of course I am thankful for you two fine individuals, and I do enjoy our flexibly scheduled conversations about Marvel Snap, we have quite a bit to talk about tonight, and I will warn our listening and viewing audience that it's going to be difficult to find the positive. There are a few things, but I think this is going to be one of like the classic like Cosmo negative energy episodes. So
Here we go again. Mr. Negative has taken over.
That's not your thing. I'm sure
you've been warned.
Yeah, you've been warned, and if you are offended, feel free to leave your opinion in our YouTube comment section, where ZombiesGoNomNom will be more than happy to share their thoughts with you. So, I think that this is we're coming up on Black Friday and Thanksgiving, and we are in the midst of a Thanksgiving theme Deadpool's diner. Is it diner or dinner?
It's diner.
Okay, it's still diner, but they're kind of, they made it in this like fun Thanksgiving theme. Fun fact, where I'm from in Quebec, the traditional Thanksgiving dinner is not a turkey, but it's a ham, holiday ham.
You must love holiday ham.
I did, until I came upon it in Deadpool's Diner. The game mode, the new game mode that
2.0
2.0 that everybody wanted to come back.
Yeah.
And fun story. I've been playing a little bit of Deadpool's Diner, and I thought to myself yesterday, oh, this isn't so bad. I'm about halfway, and then I got to Holiday Ham. And I realized that I am probably less than halfway, and that mountain top looks insurmountable. I am
exponential scaling, right? It's fun and it's easy for people to understand, right?
I just have one word for you: Whaambulance.
Oh no, you missed on the new card and you got 3 things you didn't want. Go cry about it. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Already owned. It's funny. I queued into someone whose name was Can't Do, and I thought that was pretty funny. And I thought, wouldn't it be funny if my username on Ladder was already owned in all caps?
Classic.
That's my most common card.
So for anyone who doesn't know, these are some background images in the diner, and it's like, I mean, compared to everything else going on, I wouldn't even call this a controversy because it's so small compared to the larger things that are going on right now. But there has been a little bit of talk about these things where it's like some people think it's kind of ridiculous to like, because like obviously the whole thing with Deadpool, right, is he's that fourth wall breaking character. So how I'm sure this is meant to be interpreted is it's like, oh, look, guys, Deadpool has the same complaints we do. Like, it's meta, they're in on the joke. But it's like, while it makes sense for the character, I think it's hard to feel like the people making it are in on the joke, when it feels like the joke has been ongoing For let's just say if the joke was a Marvel Snap card, it could be silenced by Enchanters because it has been ongoing. This hasn't stopped or changed. I'll give a nod to the Arsham one because you not believe how many people I see who thought their opponent was legitimately cheating because they never faced Arsham before and then they played a 2-on-1. It's like, this guy's cheating. It's like that's kind of funny. But yeah, I don't think these went over super well with everybody. But
the Whaambulance one, the $99
that's the
bundle one
controversy.
is like okay, and the Arsham one is like I kind of roll my eyes a little bit, but the Whaambulance one, that one like hits you like
that one seemed to hit people pretty hard, and I think it's because that's the experience. Because ultimately, you can ignore a $99 bundle. You can insta concede to every Arsham player because that's the morally correct thing to do if you value not a terrible Marvel Snap experience. But there's no getting around that. Everyone has that time where they missed on keys, and unlike what you might see on the internet where your favorite local streamer or YouTuber has enough keys to not run out, there are a lot of people who use their keys and don't get the new card that week. And God, genuinely, if I ever had that experience as a player, I'm pretty sure I would just quit on the spot. Like if I used my keys for the week, I only had 3, and I was like, well, the odds are in my favor, and then it didn't pan out, and especially I got a bunch of like variants or a duplicate or something, I'd be so out. Like it's just such a feels bad.
The variants haven't even been good. It's like
last week's variants were so bad with Fenris. Really
oh
my god!
I bought with tokens. I didn't like them, and it's like obviously art's subjective, but we were saying this before the show. It's like the longer the game has been out and the more variants there are for cards, and the fact that they keep repeating a lot of these older cards rather than bringing newer cards back to spotlights faster, it means you probably already have a variant for a lot of these characters. And so before, I think it kind of softened the blow a little bit when you got an extra and it wasn't a new card, but it was like, well, maybe I didn't have a variant for this Series 4 or Series 5 card, so it's not all for nothing. But now, time has gone on, more people have variants for some of these cards, and it's like, I just don't want this stuff, and there's nothing I can do with it, and I'm forced to have to interact with it if I want to get the new card. And it's great if you can just one tap them over and over again, but that's not the reality for most people. And so it's worth mentioning, we're going to talk about the diner first, but like the economy stuff has been an ongoing issue for so long, and they keep being like, we're listening, we're hearing you guys, we know, and it just doesn't feel like it has gotten anywhere, and it feels like it's a problem that they aren't actually taking seriously at all. And I think Deadpool's Diner is victim of something similar in terms of just like feedback was not received on this mode, or it was, and it was completely ignored and thrown away, because there were a lot of people I saw last time who wanted to like Deadpool's Diner but didn't. Like the mode was certainly not without its flaws, to say the least. I think it's inherently flawed, personally. But there were a lot of people willing to be like, all right, look, you just need to tweak a few things and it'll be fine. And like there was a lot of suggestion given about that and all that stuff. And then they're like, all right, Diner 2.0 is coming up, everyone. Look forward to it. And then I'm waiting for Diner to drop so I can cover it and say like, hey, here's what they changed. And I load it up and they have changed almost nothing. The only thing they changed was they eliminated bots from the higher tables, and then they had to go back on that and expand the matchmaking because people were getting in queues for 40 minutes because they couldn't find another player to play against. And when this was brought up, they were like, well, maybe here on Discord, the feedback was overwhelmingly negative, but we have other ways of gaining feedback, and so we don't really see it that way. And it's like, all right, well, I guess that predatory pop-up that tells you to, buy more bubs with gold must have made them a fat sack of cash, because that seems to be the only positive thing they're getting out of this. Because really, talking to so many players about it, the common consensus I see is like, I like the rewards. I don't really like anything else about it.
And
I don't like the doubling. It's stressful. It creates stress. I hate the pop-up. It makes me, it's all stuff we said the last time it came around. It's it's better at making you feel bad when you lose than feel good when you win. And because of exponential scaling and how poorly we generally understand that as like human beings, people are not good with exponential scaling. This card feels out of reach for so many people who it might not actually be out of reach of them, but the experience is so negative for them and they feel so discouraged. I know a bunch of people are just not even like I've seen already, have already given up. And it's just it's so weird to me that they viewed the first time as such a successful thing, which is why I can only assume it made them money.
It also it's because they're like, well, our engagement was so good, and it was like, well, yeah, because
people want the free stuff.
There's two reasons for it, though, right? Not only is it free stuff, but like you have to think it's free stuff in an economy that's super bad because the card acquisition model is so terrible that like the chance to get a free card is like, it doesn't come around very often. And that's like, you look at that and you're like, oh, that's like $100 value, right? I mean, not really, but
$50 value in this case, because now there's series 4s, but yeah,
right.
Sure.
So that's part of it. And then the other part was that it was the meta that they created with RSM. And they're like, oh,
you needed Cassandra.
You need Cassandra because it's the solution to the RSM problem. And so here it's like, it's not even a good card. But it's a free card.
No, it does not seem that good. And that's why I've seen some people are like, yeah, I'm okay with skipping it because I don't think I'm going to play it, which is like, that's fine. But also that really shouldn't be like how so many people seem to feel about what is supposed to be their exciting new limited time mode. Right now on the Discord, there's a feedback thread. It has 27 little positive emotes. It has 336 negative emotes for Deadpool's Diner. It's not even close, man. It's so weird to see them dismiss this as like, oh no, you guys are just a vocal minority, blah blah blah. And and I asked this question and I got an answer that was such a nothing burger of an answer. But I was like, hey, I'm someone who hates this mode. I strongly dislike it. I think the game would be better if it never came back. Except when you look at my engagement stats, you're going to look at it and see, wow, this person has only played Deadpool's Diner the last 5 days when they played Marvel Snap. Clearly, this mode is a success. And it's like, no, it's not. It's actually just the negative feelings I have around it are resulting in me playing the game less in general. But when I'm playing the Diner because I want to get it done so I don't have to play it anymore. Like finishing it and not having to play Diner anymore is a better reward to me than the Jane Foster variant.
I feel like Hearthstone kind of did this a little differently. They'd have those like quests where it'd be like play like X games in ranked play mode and then you'll get this prize. At least if they did that, like if they forced us on ladder, it would still suck, but at least it would be ladder instead of Deadpool's Diner, which is so people are going to do what they need to do to get the card, and it's not even just the card. Like they give gold and credits, and they don't give. One thing I've noticed since I've been back, because I took a few months off, they don't give gold and conquest anymore. When did that stop? When did that stop?
It's funny. So at first they replaced it with a border, like 3 or 4 months ago. There was like a border for a month or two, and then the gold just disappeared entirely. And they never said anything about it. We don't know if it's coming back or not, but the poor Marvel Snap economy be struggling out here and can't even get your 200 gold and conquest anymore. You're measly, I don't even know what that is, like $1, $2, something like that. It's nothing. But no, they really got to be careful with it, or it'll all come crumbling down. Apparently,
fuck conquest. But sorry, Nate. 34 minutes on the stream. You'll
whatever
it out, or you'll put the disclaimer.
Yes.
Yeah. No. It has been an unfortunate experience, and man, I've had some games in Diner since I guess I started playing it after they loosened up the matchmaking. I've been queuing, like not often, but I'll queue into people sometimes who are like at 1,000 CL.
Yeah, I get them too, 1 to 2K CL, and it's like, God, can you imagine how much of a miserable experience that would be? Like, it was already bad.
It's
but
free.
It's so much worse now. Yeah, it's so much worse for these people, and it's like, I feel bad for them because it's like you shouldn't be playing someone who has 10 times your collection level and way more cards and decks and experience, but maybe that just speaks to there really is a problem with keeping newer players around, because I feel like the range I see collections in this game, it's a pretty standard, like, I think the people who have played from launch are usually somewhere between like 10 to 15k, and then more if they've spent a good bit of money. But somewhere between 10 15k is what I've seen from people who are like free to play or pass only or stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's been like the rough range I've seen. And if you've spent a bunch of money over time, like I have, I'm like 32 or 33 or something. But I've noticed a range where you either see someone in that 10 to 15k range, or you see people who are like between 500 and 2000. But I see so much less of the people who are in between those.
What do you think my collection level is?
Let's see. I'm 32. I don't know. I'll say like 20.
You're very close. 19,948.
Yeah, not too bad. Not too
Yeah,
bad.
good guess. Good guess.
For the guesstimating. But yeah, it's disappointing to see that it feels like there was nothing learned from in Deadpool's Diner. Like, and it's clearly something I think they put enough work into in making it to where they do not want to get rid of it. And we will never know the numbers because they will never release them. But if I were to bet some money here, it would be on the fact that Deadpool's Diner makes them significantly more money than their other limited time mode, High Voltage. Because if you don't know, and if you've played Deadpool's Diner, you should know. Whenever you lose and you bust out a Bubs, you get this handy little pop-up that says, "Hey, you could wait all this time, or you could write a fat check to Benjamin Brode and get that instant gratification and hop right back in and keep gambling, kids." And though it's, I think, dumb and a lot of people avoid it, the pop-up is there and happens at the time it does for a reason. It's really to capitalize on that when you're feeling bad about a loss and you want to just jump back in. I would be surprised if that part of the reason they're like, wow, Deadpool's Diner was so successful, is because they probably made some good money off of that. Whether it's people buying gold for it, or I think more realistically, it's helping to drain the gold reserves of people who have a lot of gold, so they're more likely to buy more in the future.
It's the time kept game mode that the mobile economists there always wanted, right? It's the classic, like, you're out of energy kind of like.
If they could design the regular play mode to have a feature like this and get away with it, they would. They 100% would. But unfortunately, I don't think they're in the position to do that. Fortunately for us. But yeah, it's just been annoying. I've been taking it slow. I just got the card today. I'm not particularly excited about the card. The other thing they didn't listen to on feedback was like how uneven the grind feels. Like Blue was talking about Holiday Ham. Like Holiday Ham and the Jello one are the places you're going to spend most of your time in the diner, because those are the big gaps between upgrading the Bub Mart, so your natural refresh is a lot more. And it's just annoying. It is just annoying that they, like, the rest of it goes pretty quick. And it's like, well, you could have changed the numbers a bit and spread that out. And I think people would have been more receptive to the progression if they didn't feel locked in this one part of it for half of their time or more with the mode. But they're like, nah, let's just run it back and change the art. And well, so far that hasn't gone over super well. I think it's just not a good mode. When the main thing that is appealing to people about your mode is the rewards and none of the things that make it a different mode, I think you've made a failed mode, because everyone's always going to like free stuff. No one's going to be complaining about the free stuff. They just want the free stuff because, you only get so much free stuff. But it's really so rare I find that the target audience of Marvel Snap and the target audience of, whoever Deadpool's Diner is trying to target does not seem to be a big overlap. And at least last time, they tied it in with the movie. And I think that made it more appealing to people and made people a little more interested in it. Maybe for new players too. I don't know. But I think without the movie and a strong meta relevant card carrying it, I'll be surprised if they put out a little neat statistic thing at the end of this, because I cannot imagine they're going to see anywhere near the numbers they saw in the first Deadpool's Diner. I'd be really surprised if that were
I
to
agree.
happen.
I agree. And the card, part of it was that I think we were pushing Cassandra Nova so hard because like Arsham was crazy. We wanted, and this new card is just not the same. I don't know.
No, and it's like, I don't even know, like, I don't think, even if the new card was really good and desirable, I don't think that would have fixed the issues either, but it would have, I think it would have made people more excited about what the game piece they're getting to engage with. I haven't seen very much excitement around the card, even as someone who likes Thor, and I don't really mind the design of this card. It just doesn't really excite me to put it in a deck or brew with it. And so that made me play the diner, more slowly and less, because I'm like, well, I mean, I'll get it before it, runs out, but I'm not running for it. Like, I don't really need this. I mean, I could stop diner now entirely if I wanted to. I'll get the free stuff because I'll probably use the borders at some point, but it just, I don't know. It's remarkable to me they got so much feedback about stuff that could the breakpoint thing could so very easily be changed, and they fully admitted on the first time, like, yeah, it's a bit of our bad with exponential scaling. We thought people would get it better and understand that it doesn't take a million things to actually get the final reward, but people don't understand it better. And even after playing it, just because I understand it doesn't make me have more fun with it. Just because I don't think it's as impossible to get to the end as someone who doesn't understand the scaling system doesn't mean like you made it fun. It legitimately feels like I'm just playing Snap Ladder, except there are more games that end on turn 3. And it's like, who thought that was a good idea? The positives are just so small compared to the negatives, because when you bust out of bubs and you don't have any more and you're locked out of the mode, it feels so bad, and it's not offset by the time you win a bunch. I mean, statistically, we're more likely to remember those negative experiences more than the positive ones. And so even if you're having them on, let's say, a 50-50 rate, like, you're gonna remember the bad beats more than the good ones. And when these numbers get so inflated and artificial, it's like when I'm doing a game for like 1 million bubs versus 10 million, like, it doesn't feel like I'm winning 10 times more, right? Like, yeah, it's progressing my track more. That's nice and all, but I don't feel like the stakes are 10 times higher. I think that's what they wanted this to be, and it just doesn't. For me, it just doesn't hit at all. Like, I don't feel super great about winning those big points games compared to how bad you feel when like you lose them and get locked out. But at least I'll say at least the metagame isn't as terrible as it was last time. Last time was made even worse by the fact that Arsham defined the game and they locked the counter behind the diner. That was so incredibly stupid, especially given that Arsham's lack of information and randomness, it makes it impossible to play around, and the whole concept of this mode is knowing when to stay and knowing when to leave. Arsham makes that 100 times harder. So the fact that they thought it was a good idea to let that card run rampant during the first iteration, and I mean, still now that it's back, I think Arsham's still incredibly stupid when it comes to the diner, but it's not this tier S deck that is beating everything else in the game. It's just
It's the highest.
powerful one.
It's the highest played deck in the game, though. I mean,
Is
when
it?
you combine Arishem at all ranks is 7%, and Arishem Thanos, there's enough people playing it that has its own call out at 4.7. It's been hovering like at a combined 13, like between 11 and 14%, basically since I started paying attention. That's higher than the Battle Pass card. So, I mean, I think that I'm going to make a bit of a bold. I'm going to have a hot take, and then I'm going to have a prediction. My hot take is that, much like the metagame of the past Deadpool's Diner, it kind of is revolving around Arishem. The amount of Cassandras that people play against me for like 5 or 6, it's kind of hilarious. But like people are playing the card because like a lot of the matches are against Arshem. And the best indicator. So my hot take is that the metagame kind of is in a way warped by Arshem. Arshem, I don't want to say revolving around because it's not the best, but it's most common. And as we know, play rate has been hilariously the biggest.
Usually.
Yeah, it's the strongest indicator that a card's going to get nerfed. So like I would say right now, I don't know how, but Arshem is going to get hit with something in the next patch. I suspect it will be more cards, more random cards, or maybe they go ham. I don't think they'll do this, but what if it becomes like the whiz bang of Snap? You know, like you just get
You see a pre-made deck.
Replace your deck with I don't
Yeah,
know.
I mean, really, if they're gonna keep it in the game as its own thing, I would much prefer if they all the Arsham defense squad always say they love the randomness. All right, cool. Let's double down on that. Let's not let you put any other 11 cards in the deck and just add more cards to it. Replace those cards with random cards. Have fun. And I would be willing to wager that you would suddenly see a lot of people having less fun with Arsham because they're not getting the carries that actually carry
they're
that
not getting
consistently anymore.
they're not getting the Eliathon 5 or like
Or the Blob or the Shang Shadow King or whatever.
or
Like,
the double Shang or whatever. You know,
I mean,
like
I think that's aside from just ripping the card out and making it its own game mode to keep those people happy. I think that's what you should do with it. Is you should just make it totally random, and it would be less because you would still get tilted.
Okay,
You know,
all right.
when they find it 1 in 100, or when they find that random Shadow King, but you would be experiencing that so much less.
Okay,
So, and
counter.
then you wouldn't have the they drew their one of in a 20 card deck, and it's bullshit.
Counterpoint to RSM getting nerfed.
Mm-hmm.
I have a gold split with a white crackle.
All right, it's over. Arsham's not getting nerfed.
I actually, you know what? I have a gold split with a black crackle on it too, which technically is like higher
Rarer,
valued,
but
but
you
like
can't see
the
it.
the white one is so much better, and the white crackle goes really well with the borders, the different borders, because it really contrasts well.
So you'd like this change because then you'd have a fully gold crackle deck. There you go. You wouldn't need to split your other cards. You'd be all set.
No, I'm all for RSM getting nerfed because as much as I've played that deck, and I've played it a lot, an embarrassing amount, the reason I've played it is because there wasn't any other alternatives. This was before I took my break, and post break, I was playing RSM, but then thankfully I decided to make the numbskull decision to spend 5 keys on getting Fenris Wolf, 4 to get the wolf, and then my
3x value.
My rule is that I rage open the spotlight variant if it costs me 4 keys. If I like it, if it sucks, I won't. But yeah, I switched to a different deck, and thankfully it was good enough to like allow me to continue playing the game. But like, good grief, like I'm ready for it to die. Like, I mean, I don't know.
It's a shame because, like, again, one of the only nice things I'll ever say about Arshem is it's become the new high Evo that you can recommend to a new player and they can build very budget. And it's like, I want something like that to exist. I think it's good for something like that to exist. I don't think it's good for it to exist in the form Arshem has. I think anytime a card like that is good and relevant, the game is worse for it. And it just flat out, genuinely, there is, I mean, maybe original Loki, but there's really almost no other card in the history of this game that makes me want to go play literally any other game when I see like 2 of it or 3 of it in a short session. I'm just like, all right, I'm done. Like, I forgot we weren't playing Marvel Snap today. We were playing Arshem. It removes the core component of what they base their game around. Like, it completely screws the snapping dynamic, and it ruins what I think a lot of people enjoy about card games. It's like my favorite thing about card games is, hey, you build a deck of cards and you focus on its strengths and what it's good at versus other things, and that's how you tune your deck and you make it better and you adapt to the environment and all this stuff. Like, that's super cool. And then Arsham just throws that out the window and says, hey, what if I ran like a deck full of tech cards, a few big things, got to have all this unpredictability, and by the way, I have double your energy.
Double your energy. I love that, by the way, throwaway at the end.
Yeah,
Like,
it's like, by the way, I get to play a turn ahead of curve for the whole game. But don't worry, guys, it's a downside. It's a downside. It's a downside. And the thing that always gets me particularly annoyed is anytime I go on an Arsham rant to alleviate my frustrations against playing against that piece of garbage, people are like, just play a counter, bro. Just put Cassandra Nova in your deck. Just put Darkhawk in your deck.
Yeah,
and it's like, one, that has never been like a sufficient answer to anything in Snap. Otherwise, we wouldn't have seen, the Storm nerf or the Eliath nerf or all these cards that counters, man. That's not a good enough of an answer. But let's say it was. Putting a counter in to beat them more doesn't fix my problem. I just like playing against Arsham when I win, because it's just not playing the same game to me. What happens is the statistically correct thing to do versus a deck that has so many extra cards, reducing their odds of getting what they need, is to always put them on exactly what they need, because that's just the way math works, is that statistically that should work out for you more than it shouldn't. However, it still works out for them a large number of times, and that creates this big feels bad because you can't adapt your play to that. There's nothing you can learn from doing that. Like, you could learn, well, the only thing you learn essentially is play around nothing and then just be annoyed when you get punished for it. Because, like, if you try and go the extra level of, all right, well, I will play around these specific things, sometimes you just lose to that, because you altered your play to play around something they didn't even have. So it's like, there's nothing to learn from it. I never feel like I'm learning something when I play against Arsham, because the variance is so high. Well, the only thing I learn is that, like, it makes my desire to play Marvel Snap less. That's the only thing I learned. Like, I legitimately mentally check out 90% of the time I'm playing versus an Arsham player, because the energy is wasted trying to think about that game most of the time relative to how that thinking will affect the outcome. It just doesn't matter so much of the time, and it just doesn't feel like it's playing the same game. And I think Snap is significantly worse as long as that card is popular. and we should also mention there's been some heavy feedback about Arsham over on the Discord that's apparently gotten pretty heated. They had to create a whole feedback thread about it. And
that's right.
There are a lot of Arsham takes. Don't get me wrong. There are definitely still the card has its fair number of defenders, but if you hate Arsham, you're not alone. And it's incredibly funny to me, especially not naming names, but seeing a handful of people who hardcore defended Arsham be like, hey, this card is terrible and it makes the game worse for me. God, that's fun to see. It's like, yeah, shocking. Who could have predicted? Did they delete the Arsham feedback thread, or is it just too far? I wonder if they actually deleted it. I don't see it anywhere anymore. It was a massive thread. It was like, it's had hundreds of comments. I don't know. It might be gone now though.
That's hilarious.
That's wild. I didn't even, because I was looking to see how many negative things it had, and I had it as one of the things I was keeping tabs on, seeing what people had to say about it, and that's just gone. So I'm pretty sure the Arsham feedback thread has been deleted.
Wow.
Funny. Very funny. But yeah, I mean, Arsham, nothing has changed, right? It is what it is. It's not the best thing in the world, but it's more popular than a lot of other stuff. Thanos made it more popular too. Cool to see Thanos buff, though. I feel like this is the first time in a very long time Thanos feels playable but not broken. Like, I've played some Thanos, I've enjoyed it. It's been fun. I don't like that people have put it with Arsham, but what are you gonna do? But yeah, anytime Thanos is playable but not like an S tier deck, I think the game is usually better for it. And so far, that has been the case here. I mean, I don't think we're really going to talk about the OTA stuff. much, but it's nice that in the month where there's only one OTA for November and December, at least for the November one, they seem to get it more right than wrong, which is definitely breaking a loss streak because some of the OTAs leading up to it were bad. And I was particularly worried the diner would be even worse if we were in, let's say the OTA led to a bad meta. It's like, would have been a lot worse.
Counterpoint, the highest ranked Thanos deck, the highest
Is it
win
not
rate
doing
Thanos
good?
deck, no, it's doing very well, especially when you pair it with Arishem.
Yeah,
The top
it's
three
Arsham carrying it.
Thanos decks all have actually, okay, once I filtered by top 10%, the best Arishem deck is still the best Thanos deck is still with Arishem. The second best one is not, but like they pretty much all have Arishem in it. So Thanos is an Arishem card.
Yeah, well, I mean, it
Wow.
starts in hand for free now, and they can play it a turn earlier. And if you get Time Stone, all of a sudden you're playing Thanos on turn.
Yeah, so
3, right?
so you know the tilt opener is with Arishem Thanos, and I've seen
You
this.
wave on 2 into Thanos on 3, right?
No, that's not the opener. That's the middle. That's the middle game. No, Mind Stone and Quinjet on 1.
Mindstone Quinjet on 1. What a truly beautiful, intelligent line of play.
Because Mind Stone costs 1 again. When I stopped playing, it was 2. I guess they buffed that at some point.
Yeah,
so,
they brought it back. The good news is, I mean, Thanos Lockjaw is pretty playable. I've seen some people do okay with Zoo too. Like Thanos is back, but it's sad to see that by far his most popular home has been in Arsham because of the
and best
free card and
performing
ramp.
home.
Yeah.
So maybe we can pivot. I'm not sure we have much to talk about the diner, and we didn't subtly hint at this. I just wanted to talk a little bit about coming back to Snap after not playing for a few months. So I have been going through quite a bit outside of the Snap world, and that has limited my ability to play Snap. It does demand a fair bit of time to do your dailies and to climb ladder and to get your conquest rewards and to do your alliance bounties.
It adds up.
Yeah, so I just was like, nope. I noped out in September. I still kept an eye on things though, but I wasn't playing. I didn't play at all. And I started playing again last week because I missed one ranked season completely. I started at gold instead of like at
you start quite
30.
a bit lower down, right?
Yeah, I started like at 30, I think it was. And I had no goals or anything. I ended up hitting infinite. I wasn't going to play Deadpool's Diner because I hate it.
Yeah.
But I want the card because I like the Thor, Jane Foster nonsense. So now I'm stuck getting this stupid card. But anyways, the point is in the time that I was away, I missed basically the entire month of October and the first half of November and a chunk of September, and I feel so punished.
How many cards did you miss? Is that like 6? Maybe more?
1, 2, was October a 4 or 5 week month? I think it was a 5-week month. So I missed 2,
Yeah,
7.
I think September was longer. No, was it October? Might have been. I think it was October. Yeah, or were they both longer months? It might have been both.
I missed 8 or 9 cards. I missed all of the like agony, scream, score, and like all that stuff. I missed all that.
Okay.
Yeah, the symbiote stuff.
Yeah, and I did end up getting the Battle Pass card in October, although I didn't play it all. So I have Agent Venom, but I don't have the variant. And of course, I got Agent Venom just in time for it to get nerfed. So I ended up playing Sarah Control to Infinite this month, and I didn't even play with Agent Venom because it was nerfed. And Fenris Wolf was like, I don't know if it was better, but it did the job. So yeah, it just like, so here's the thing, and I think this is my objective like kind of assessment. I think taking a break from playing Snap was really good because I had quite a bit of fun playing Snap. I know, like I got to play Sarah Control. Ladder's pretty cozy, at least for me at this point. I know everyone's experience is different, but like I was facing nothing but bots and gold and platinum. I didn't start seeing real players until diamond. It was chill and it was good. And I saw less RSM because it hadn't really kind of came back yet. That was great. But not being able to play different decks because I missed so many cards, that sucked. Spending 4 keys to get Fenris Wolf, that sucked. Having to buy one card that I missed for 6,000 tokens, that sucked. Having to skip another one that I wanted, Toxin, because it's just too expensive, that sucked. And so whatever positive my return experience was, it was overshadowed by just how increasingly impossible it is to keep up with things. Even before I stopped, I was missing cards like Copycat, and I still don't have Living Tribunal.
No, it's unfortunate on Copycat because that one just returned. So, like, if you missed that one, see you in 2026 Copycat, because that's one of the fastest, I think, Spotlight returns we've ever had, and I don't imagine it's coming back super soon, but it's not as relevant as it was.
I'm a big the 3/5 move change a location card. I generally play that
Nocturne. Well, it's a 3/4, but
oh, it's a 3/4 now.
Yep, they nerfed that a while ago because
I just forgot. I guess.
Yeah,
well,
that's
Nocturne.
fine.
But
Nocturne's still cool, but yeah, it's it more so speaks
that.
to the system. And you didn't, to be clear, you didn't get anything for coming back, right? Like, there was no, hey,
nothing.
we've seen you've been gone a while. Here, have something. Like, no, none of that.
No, nothing at all. But that's probably because I logged in October and got the battle pass, right? So I mean,
yeah, that could be. Like, I know apparently they run a promo. They ran it during last Diner and this one for like lapsed players, but it's not enough to make a meaningful impact. And
yeah, it was 3,000 tokens on the high end, so 3/4 of a Series 4 card or half of a Series 5 card. Like it's not good. And I think that we're gonna talk about the series drops in a little bit, but like I feel like we're at this like inflection point where all of these kind of negative things have kind of hit critical mass, right? Collection system, not good. Deadpool's Diner, not good. The state of the game itself, it's not the worst it's been, truthfully, but I feel like Arishem has passions running quite
Arsham
high.
has always been like that, and I think it's continued to be like that. But it's funny, in the wake of like people complaining about a lot of things, the metagame balance is very low on that list right now. Like, Arsham debate aside, like, I think this is one of the I would dare to say this has been one of the most diverse, relatively balanced metas we've seen throughout all of this year of Marvel Snap. It's been, I think, notably better this patch than it has been in a lot of other ones. But that only carries so far, especially when a lot of people don't have the cards to make stuff. Like, I put out a video for Diner. I had 13 decks, and one of the comments that really stood out to me was like, hey, thanks for the video. Unfortunately, I'm missing cards from every single one of these decks.
Oof.
Sad face. And it's like, I don't blame them, but it's like, what do you want me to do? Like, I tried to give people a lot of options, including some more quote unquote budget friendly stuff, but it's like, yeah, man, it sucks. I don't know what to say. Like, it's become harder and harder to give new players like recommendations and guidelines. And I mean, truthfully, I think it's almost easier telling the new people just to be like, don't bother. Like, you're just falling down the rabbit hole, and when it stops, throwing cards at you, it's like it just becomes bad, and it's not going to get better, man. like that's not what you want to be telling people who are like new and excited about the game. That's like the last thing these people probably want to hear. But it's like, what? I don't have a better answer for them. Like, it's just where we're at.
And like that we always talk about like the honeymoon being over, and like I know that's kind of an odd
It
thing
took
to
a
say.
while though, but yeah,
Two
that's
years
where we're
in,
at.
yeah.
Like,
Well, the honeymoon's over for the most
for the engaged online
ardent.
people. Yeah.
Well, for the ardent supporters of the engaged online people, I want to make sure that I qualify who the honeymoon is over for. Like, you see this like swirl of overwhelming negative feedback, and there was always like the defense force popping up, and I think you'll still find one or two comments,
Sure.
but like
Not like it
I mean,
was.
not like it was. Yeah,
Everyone
definitely.
goes through the process at a different point in time. There's like levels to it. The level you're seeing a lot of people get right now is like, they're angry about something and they're trying to come up with ways to fix it. And it's like, well, I was there like a year ago, and where people will eventually get to, unless Second Dinner beats them to the punch, is eventually that anger turns into ambivalence. Like people just they like the anger comes from a place of caring about the game, and once you cross over from being angry about it because you care to feeling like disengaged and like disinterested in the result because you don't expect anything, like that apathy is so much worse. It's a lot less loud because I think a lot of people end up just not bothering at all and quitting and maybe like watch from an arm's distance. Because I know I have people like that who comment on videos or on Twitch who are like, hey, still like your stuff, but yeah, quit Snap like 2 months ago, 6 months ago. Can't say I regret it. And it's like, yeah, don't blame you. And I do think it's worth bringing up what Blue said in terms of like taking a break. I think part of what leads to this anger and this animosity is like people like the game, they want to see it get better. It feels like it's not getting better. And part of that also is just like when you've played a game for a long time, it usually gets a bit less fun over time because you've played a lot of it. Like when I was playing Marvel Snap with like 5 hours into the game versus 4,000 hours into the game, yeah, I was probably having more fun when it was new because it was this fresh new thing that was shiny and appealing, like Pokemon Pocket or the Bazaar or whatever flavor of the week thing is, right? Like that's exciting, and it gets less exciting over time. But one of the big benefits to a lot of card games is they all punish you a bit for taking a break, right? Like in Hearthstone, you're not earning your gold, and Magic, you're not doing your quests and getting the pass and the gold. Like you lose stuff from not playing, but not to a point where it feels so prohibitive to the experience that you feel like you can never take a break. Whereas Snap, things are expensive in Snap, and believe it or not, relative to what it would cost to get those things in game, the stuff that you get for free adds up. They actually give you a lot of currency for free if you are dedicated to playing the game. It's certainly not nothing. And for me at least, it's felt more impactful than a lot of the other what the other card games give. But the thing is, it also feels like it demands a bit more of you than I feel like the other card games do. Particularly you can't just, if I take a break in Hearthstone and come back, they throw some stuff at me to try and make it easier to get back into it. Because if I get back into it, I'm going to spend money, which is what they want to happen. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen people come back to the game and ask for advice, and they're like, hey, I just came back. I stopped in this season. These are kind of my best cards. Like, what do you recommend? And it's hard because that's a question that is different for everyone because it depends on your collection. It depends on what you enjoy. It depends on what's going on at the time in the game. There's a lot of layers to it. I can't just give someone a flat answer that works for everybody as much as I would like to. But what usually happens is people are missing a lot of cards. I try and give them a little bit of advice. Maybe they get the current card of the week and build around that or whatever. But most of the time, the people I see coming back usually leave again within the same week because when people quit, it's usually out of boredom or frustration. Either they're bored with the decks that they have and they feel like they're not close to getting something else, or maybe they don't like the metagame. Maybe the last few metas haven't been their cup of tea, so they decide to take a break, and then when they come back, it'll be better. And sometimes it is better. Like when you quit Blue, I think the meta was probably significantly worse, and now it's quite a bit better. But the thing with that is, well, you don't have a bunch of the cards that are helping make it better. and there's no timetable on how you're going to acquire those cards. Like you don't know when these are coming back to caches, and you don't have that many tokens. Like so it creates these like it's just so hard to return. And I think naturally most card games really benefit from that, being able for people to take a break so they don't get burnt out on it. And Snap System they're trying to rely on that FOMO to keep you going every day. And I think that creates a higher level of burnout than you typically see otherwise. And that fuels into all of this, because people are like, well, I'm not having as much fun with the game as I was before, but I don't want to stop playing it because then I'm never going to be able to come back. And then you add in maybe it's a meta they're not enjoying, and all of a sudden the game starts feeling like work and not fun. And that is the last thing you want your game to be, is feeling more like work than fun. And that's how I think you get people to quit altogether. And some people do, and then they try and come back later, and it just doesn't work out very well. So as much as like acquisition on a whole needs improvement, the returning player experience and new player experience has to be better. Frankly, at this point, and maybe this can lead into the series drop stuff, I think series as a concept just needs to go the way of the dodo. I think series the concept of series for cards worked with their original model, and it does not work anymore. And I mean, we even have, I don't know if you want to pull up the quote from Mr. Ben Brode, Nate, where it was like, we've been seeing all this talk about card acquisition and stuff, and someone pulled up a Ben Brode quote from December 2022 where they're like, yeah, we still have things to figure out with card acquisition, but one thing we know for sure is we're going to have to, drop cards as fast as new cards are getting put in. Otherwise, Series 5 will bloat up infinitely. And all this stuff. But he's like, it's okay. We have time to figure this out, so on and so forth. Fast forward to 2 years later, what has happened? Series 5 continues to bloat up infinitely. And we're seeing a bunch of outrage about the series drops. And like Blue pointed out, he was like, well, I mean, compared to what they normally do, like, I don't think this is that much of a departure from the norm. And I think you're right. Like, it's not that these drops are worthless on their own or so bad on their own, but I think a lot of people were looking for like a win in a sea of like discontent and being unhappy with things. And I know I saw so many people were like, well, we've been complaining about card acquisition so much. They keep saying they hear us. Maybe this drop will be a little bit better. We're only getting 3 of them a year. Maybe this one will be a little bit better. And not only was it not better, I think it ended up being worse than a lot of people were hoping for. A lot of cards going down to Series 4 that are going to be reappearing in spotlights in the next month or two. And barely any cards going to Series 3. But even if a bunch of cards dropped, I don't think it fixes the problem, which is that Series 5 has gotten too big. New cards come out every week, and it's just too much to keep up with under the current system.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like it's working long term. It creates a terrible environment for content, because if someone is a new player, all the online content is largely irrelevant to them for like 8 months to a year. That doesn't work, man. That doesn't work for creating content. And it's one of the reasons I think you're seeing so many Snap creators branch out. The numbers are down. The morale is down. The game hasn't fundamentally changed very much. I mean, they are adding more cards now this year than they did last year. They're experimenting with some of these limited time game modes, but the game is still what it was before. And I think a lot of people are just left wanting something more, something better. And for a long time, that was enough for people to coast on, was like, hey, they did such a good job with the base game. Surely they're going to improve it and make it better and make it the best game it can be. I think that was how a lot of people felt about Second Dinner early on. And then as, we've had more time to see what this company does, it's like, yeah, I don't think you'd find as many people with that perspective anymore as you once did. The honeymoon is past us here. And it feels like series drops were just kind of a catalyst. Like, I don't think the series drop reaction wouldn't have been as bad if, there was something more hopeful to point towards. But instead of getting the hey, we hear you guys, we're listening, we know it's a problem. Can we pull up the series drop thing? And they even commented with it. It's like, we know these series drops are not going to fix acquisition and they're not meant to, but we have heard your feedback on this. And so we're going to do more series drops in Q1 and it's going to be better. And it's like, and they're like, we weren't planning on doing this initially or something. Like, this is faster than we normally would have. Well, I looked at the series drop data. So series drops are happening regularly every month, starting in January of 23. They went from January until June. Then Spotlight caches happened in July, and that's when they stopped doing series drops. Series drops returned in January, and as of the upcoming one in December, we will have gotten 3 this year. So we had one in January. We had one in, I want to say April, maybe. I don't remember the exact month. I just know there were 3. And then we have the recent one coming in December. And so it's weird to me. They're being like, hey, we're going to speed this up because we know things suck and we know you want more cards. Like, I mean, I know they're not on a regular schedule anymore, but if you look to the past and look at when they did the series drops last year, it's like, is this faster? Like, we got them in January last year. Are we getting them in January again? They said Q1, so maybe it's later. I don't know, but I mean, I think it should be made clear that series drops aren't going to fix this issue, and it also kind of hurts the Series 3 people a bit because while getting a free card you might not own, like Jean Grey or Snowguard, is cool if you're like a endgame player. If I'm going through Series 3 and I get a Snowguard or a Jean Grey instead of Magneto, I don't think I'm going to be singing praises to the series drops. These are not super desirable cards. I mean, Kitty's cool. Not as crazy as she once was in the past, but still a pretty good card you can build around. The other 2, not so much. And then the ones dropping from 4 to 5, Fastos, Grandmaster, Pixie, Beta Ray Bill, X23, Supergiant, Sasquatch, Valentina, Iron Lad. And it's like half of these cards are like mediocre to bad. And that's not surprising, right? Like, this is why I was always so surprised when they basically told us they're going to drop the worst. They prioritize dropping worse cards. And people took that really well. I didn't. And I think now it's catching up with them. Like, people are like, why do they keep giving us these like not super impactful cards? It's like because they want to keep all the good ones at Series 5.
Yeah, they want you to spend the money.
And yeah, it's just, I don't know. The series drop stuff made sense under the original system of the game, and when the whole idea of it was, hey, you won't be able to get every card right away, but if you're willing to wait a little bit, you will. Like, the idea made sense because
before Null got to be the biggest meme ever.
Yeah. Null and Darkhawk have spent 600 something days in Series 4 or however long it's been. But yeah, it's just like when they had that regular system, it wasn't great for people getting a bunch of the new cards on release, but it was way better for like the average free to play player if you're willing to wait a little bit, because then you just got so many. Eventually, we would have been at the point where cards were cycling in as fast as new releases were happening, and so you'd get a lot of new cards to play with. Unfortunately, it created other problems, right? Like, people would only engage with the one new card that was broken that month and then ignore the other 3. So it led to a more stagnant metagame. It led to people experimenting with new cards less. Like, there were problems under the old system. It was not perfect for sure, but it feels like this new one, the Spotlights have such a feels bad element, and the number one thing Spotlights took away is agency. And I think now more than ever, people are really feeling that lack of agency because it feels so impossible to get a key card if you miss that Spotlight opportunity. So I think of all the things they need to bring back is some form of agency to these systems. That's not just, gambling your keys. And I think they're taking a long time on it, because if they screw it up, they could sink their cash cow, right? Like, Spotlight changes were regarded pretty widely as a positive thing when they first came out, and even people who do the dedicated math, like Lauren, were like, hey, yeah, this is a good thing, but this only remains a good thing if we have an adequate number of drops. And spoiler alert, the drop numbers haven't been adequate. So
Not
the
even
system,
close. Yeah.
no, it's really far away, and so the system's gotten worse for people. Now they're getting all these variants they want. Like people like spotlights when they were getting 2 to 3 cards a week, right? And now as
Yeah.
time has gone on, many of those players are in that rubber band section where they're only getting 1 card and they're getting other stuff they don't want. And it's creating a lot of frustration because that's burning through their resources. So they might not have enough resources by the time another card they want shows up. And that's the classic mobile game tactic of, well, out of resources, guess you got to swipe the credit card. But I think there's just so many negative feelings about it that I know for me and a lot of people I know, I've just cut spending super hard on Snap because
Yeah,
it's like
same.
Snap it's fascinating that, and I spent a whole bunch of time talking about this on stream, and I even drew up my funny diagram, which I don't know if you included that,
Oh
Nate,
yeah,
but
it's so
I
good.
love my funny diagram. But I spent like a whole like 30 minutes drawing this diagram, which makes no sense without like the context of the stream. But the short version was I was trying to explain like the demographics and where the money comes from. And the TLDR is the 1% or maybe even smaller than 1% in mobile games. This is typical, mobile game sales data stuff. This isn't, I have second dinners numbers or anything like that. This is just what most mobile games are like. 50 to 70% of the revenue comes from whales, who are 1% or less of the player base. And whales, they have a bunch of keys, they have a bunch of tokens, but the thing that keeps the whales returning is the splits and the variants. They keep going for the cosmetics because they don't need to keep swiping the credit card to get more keys and stuff. Because even if they want the spotlights, they have so many. Like in my example, let's say 60 spotlight keys. Like you don't feel a pressure. You don't feel a pressure in order to keep up as much. And I think the thing Marvel Snap is so scared about is look at the rest of the player base. You have dolphins who make up 30 to 50% of the player base. There's someone who buys the occasional bundle. They probably buy the season passes. They're fine spending a bit of money, but they make up way less money than the whales. And then free to play, which make no money. And so the thing is, Second Inner seems very afraid to gift more free resources, even though the lower tiered of players need these resources to engage with the content more meaningfully, because they're scared that if whales get the same more stuff for free, the whales have an incentive to start spending less money chasing the splits and the variants because they're still sitting on a pile of resources. So if the free resources they get become better, that just means, well, maybe I can afford to spend a little bit less money on Snap and still get what I was getting before. So I think their whole conundrum here is the game is not nearly generous enough to the larger portion of the player base, but the whales are literally swimming in resources. They like ask any whale in this game and they'll probably tell you they have more tokens and keys than they know what to do with. But what keeps them spending is usually the cosmetic stuff.
Right.
But what the other players need so badly is the progression-based stuff, and that progression-based stuff is what gets you splits, right? It gets you keys too, and it gets you tokens too, which you can use for progression, but whales aren't hurting in that department. So if you made it cheaper for whales to get the one thing that they want, which also makes it easier to maintain your keys, and because it's all tied together, right? Like credits aren't just getting you splits, they're getting you progress on the track, which gets you tokens and which gets you keys. It's all tied in together. So the whole point of the beautiful artwork here is to say they're really scared of doing something that helps the 99% here in this graphic that could damage the revenue from the 1%. And a small amount of damage to that 1% could have a significantly more negative impact on their financial situation than making things better for the free to plays and the dolphin people. Because the go-to argument a lot of people use and think makes sense is, well, if you make it cheaper, then people will enjoy it more and they'll be more likely to spend money. They'll get more free to play players who convert into pass players, or maybe dolphins will spend more. The unfortunate reality is this is not backed up in mobile game science. When prices go down, it usually doesn't result in gaining more money. They usually lose money, and that's why they do things the way they do. But the whole point of this was to help understand that the very top percentage are the ones that are making Snap its money, and that is the people second dinner is afraid to. They're afraid to not lose their business entirely or anything, but even if they make things cheaper, if they're making less money from that small group, because it's such a large part of their income, it could hit them very hard. So they need to find a way to make it so these whales aren't really seeing the same benefits that the rest of the population is what I imagine they would want to do here. But you can't do that directly, because then you risk making the whales angry, right? Because if everyone else has an easier time and the whales have it the same, well, you found a different way to make 1% of your player base who makes more than half of your revenue mad.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's a very fickle balance. And I truly do not envy the person tasked with figuring it out. But also, like, I've had so many people ask, like, well, what would you do? What would you think to do? Honestly, at this point, unless they want to hook me up with one of those 6-figure salaries, that's their business. Like, it's not my job to figure it out for them. I think a lot of people, when they get frustrated, they want to find a solution. I don't think finding the perfect solution, like if a player found the perfect solution, it would even be helpful, because like they're not listening to that, and they're much less likely to act on it too. So it's like, all right, figure it out. Like, I'm still playing the game for now, but like I'm seeing the numbers go down quite a bit in terms of people playing. And because of the content creation issues we talked about, you don't have what you have in other games like Hearthstone and Magic, where new people trickle in as old people leave. That is not happening a lot in Snap in the creation scene in terms of audience. And in terms of like creators, it's not happening at all, because you can't be a new creator for this game and find success. It's just the deck is stacked against you. It's already stacked against you, just normally becoming a new content creator in an established scene. But it's a whole nother level with Snap, because you literally, even if you want to spend hundreds of dollars, you literally can't create the content the engaged audience wants to watch. It's just, you don't have those means. So you'd have to spend money and wait a year or something to have a chance at it. And no one's going to do that.
Hey, on your graphic, what's at the bottom? Is that Plankton from SpongeBob?
It is. Angry little Plankton. I was going to draw a small fish, and I was like, well, by scale, let's make Plankton. So yeah, he's the saddest of the bunch. And it's like, the dolphins, I think, are generally okay with their spending. Like, they buy the pass, maybe a bundle. Like, that's what I feel like I fall into now. And I think there's a wide range of dolphins. And it's so funny because of how mobile game like terminology is known. So many people are very hesitant to want to call themselves a whale, because I don't think some people want to vocalize and like realize how much money they actually spend on the game. Like, it's easier to downplay it. Like, yeah, I'm a dolphin, I spend some money here or there, but I'm no whale. I'm not dropping $100 bundles and all this other stuff. But I know some people who consider themselves dolphins who spend a lot on the game. So I don't know. It's a complex problem, but all I know is, in terms of a solution, I feel like the series got to go, man. Like, spotlights and series, it's so 2024. Let's see them out. Who knows when anything is going to change? They don't tell us anything other than that they're listening and we're working on it, and we have plans and we've been working on it, and we can't talk about it and we've been working on it. And it's just like,
source, trust me,
a lot.
bro.
Yeah, a lot of people are just like, all right, well then shut up and do it. Like,
didn't someone
like,
just
show
say
me
this past week, like, that whole trust me, bro thing, like, trust me, bro, we're working on it, like, isn't going to work for much longer?
Maybe, I don't know. It's like, yeah, eventually they just keep having to answer the same responses, and it's not what people want to hear.
Right.
Maybe even if it's the correct thing for them to do, if they don't have you're in between a rock and a hard place. Because if you do tell people about what the acquisition is going to be and then you change it, well, we saw what happened with when they were like, hey, we removed character mastery from the roadmap. That went over like a box of bricks. Like, it just didn't go well, because they were like, hey, we're working on this, and we're excited about this, and Clearly,
They
people were excited about it too.
They foresaw this. They said this would happen, and I don't know. I guess they couldn't figure out. They want the game to be a gacha, but they have to do it in a way that won't cause too much backlash, and I guess that's a hard thing to do.
Yeah, I mean they reinvented the wheel when making the game from the card game perspective, and they hit it right. They did a good job, and then they were like, "Well, because we have less cards, we need to reinvent the wheel on acquisition." And if you're viewing it from purely a financial perspective, you could be like, yeah, they got that right too. They made a lot of money. And it's like, sure, they did make a lot of money, but as we're seeing it trend downward in terms of like earnings and whatnot, and engaged player satisfaction at an all-time low, it's like, yeah, they made something that was successful to like get juiced in the beginning, but they don't seem to have figured this out long term. And
What if I don't know why I just thought of this, but what if the revamped system introduces rotation?
maybe. I mean, I think they're going to be very hard pressed to ever do rotation in this game because OTA updates are their pseudo rotation,
and character mastery will kind of reinforce that you can't do that, right?
so much of this game is tied up in getting in the end game is tied up in getting a variant and a split you like of it. I think they would be very hard pressed to get away with traditional rotation in this game. I just do not think it would go over very well. Maybe it needs it at a point. This is a question most card games have to ask themselves, right? Is like, how do we handle this and when do we handle this and all this stuff. But because of the OTAs, I think they've been able to pseudo rotate cards out doing that in a way that makes rotation feel less required. Thanos is a great example. Thanos was dominating the game for a very long time. And they're like, all right, what if we took a break from that for 8 months? And then they did. And they're like, all right, well, it's been a while and the game has changed. And maybe we can revisit Thanos and try and make him playable without being broken. And surprisingly, that seems to have gone over well. I think Thanos kind of hard carried last patch, aside with some of the nerfs to the OP pass cards. I think Thanos is what actually made people excited about that patch. So I think OTAs can still kind of function as a pseudo rotation if they need them to be. But the acquisition, it's like you have to find a way to give people a better jumping on point as a new player, and return and make returning possible, and like make it just more fun to engage with the collection aspect of your game for the people who have been here so long. Because I feel like for all the old heads who've been around for so long, getting the cards feels like so much more of a chore than an enjoyable experience because of like how expensive it is and the gambling aspect. It's like we've talked about this before, but like when you go to open spotlights, Blue, what do you feel? What is the feeling you have when you go over to that spotlight cash section and you're about to rip them open? Do you feel excited?
I feel already owned.
Yeah.
I feel like immense trepidation. Like,
yeah, it's like uncertainty. It's like a little bit of dread. It's like you're more worried about the bad rolls than feeling good about the good rolls.
It's like when you were in a senior in high school or you were in college and you showed up for that midterm that you did not study for, and you're thinking, well, I kind of paid attention and I'm not an idiot, so maybe I can just fake my way through it, and then you totally get owned and you fail, and that's what opening a spotlight feels like. Feels like inevitability.
And when you do get the card, it doesn't feel like you aced the test or anything. It's like, all right, I mean, I'm happy the bad outcome. It feels like you got to see. It's like
passing.
I passed
summer school.
All right, better than I was expecting. But much like we talked about the diner, the negative feelings are much more powerful than the positive feelings. And since statistically it's a 1 in 4, assuming you're mainly gunning for the new card, you're going to have those bad times literally more often than the good times. Now, this gets different if you're missing multiple cards. That makes some weeks feel less bad than others. But I think part of the frustration with the spotlight system has come from the fact that so many engaged players are now at the end game of it, where they're finding they're only getting that one card a week unless they're skipping a significant amount of cards. Like, I got Valentina as my second card last week or whatever because it was in the spotlight with Fenris. And I want to say that's either the first or second time I've gotten a 2-card week this year. Now, I mean, I'm a unique case, right? Like, I do content around the game. I previously spent a bunch of money on it, so I'm sitting on a bunch of resources. So it's like, it's not the biggest deal in the world. Like, the series drop stuff doesn't affect me directly, but it does affect me indirectly because when, it takes an already like kind of sour mood that the community is feeling and like amplifies it a bunch and leads more people to not wanting to play the game, or still not being able to easily play a bunch of the decks that I play. It's like, yeah, that has a pretty direct negative impact on like trying to do content around the game and talking with people about decks and all this other stuff that normally is supposed to be the fun part of card games, right? It's fascinating they have managed to make a card game where collecting just feels like the worst part of it. And then I think that's one of the definitely a huge part of the reason the complaints have started amplifying is because people are feeling the fact that they have alternatives now. And I'm not going to say the gameplay is 1-to-1 or anything with like Pokemon Pocket, but Pokemon Pocket makes the opening packs part fun. And it's like, wait, why did they ditch that? So things like that, or like games like the Bazaar where it's, a one-time cost and you get so much replayability out of it. I wanted to mention auto battlers specifically.
Bazaar is going to be free to play when it comes out.
Yeah. You only have to pay right now if you want into the early access, but like it will be free to play too. And so in other game news, I watched through Arcane recently. Arcane is the League of Legends show. It was really well done. They put out the second season this month. It was great. Really enjoyed it. And so that got me in the mood for the IP. However, I don't hate myself, so I'm not going to play League of Legends. That's a trap I've seen too many people fall into, and MOBAs have never really been my thing anyway. So not for me. But fortunately, Riot Games has different games that are not League of Legends that use the characters. And no, I'm not talking about Legends of Runeterra. Although
I was about to say it.
Although I have heard that game did get some interesting single player solo content that was kind of cool. So maybe I'll check that out in the future. But the long segue here is to mention I started playing some of their auto battler team fight tactics. And it's a little overwhelming in some ways. Like it's a bit more mechanically complex than other ones I've tried, like Hearthstone Battlegrounds, some of these older auto battlers. But I had this moment the other day that was really striking to me where I played the game a bunch for a day or two and I was having a lot of fun with it. And so I messaged my friend on Discord and I was like, hey, I know you've been watching this show too. You should check out this game. It's fun. I've been playing it. It's free. You might like it. And he was like, what does it cost? And I told him it was free. And he was like, is it actually free? Or is it like, like mobile game free or card game free? Like it was very clear. Like he was trying to ask me. I was like, no, it's actually free. And so he downloaded it and started playing it. And he's been having a lot of fun with it.
Nice.
And that inspired a tweet from me, which was, auto battlers are OP because when I tell a friend it's fun and they should try it, they don't require me giving a 15-slide PowerPoint explaining on how to approach the monetization and what it costs or how long it takes in order for them to have the same amount of fun that I am having. And it's just like, this isn't even a unique thing to Snap. Truthfully, Snap is just worse about it. But like I dealt with the same kind of thing in Hearthstone or in Magic where it's like you enjoy something and you want to share that with other people who might enjoy it, but they're not as into it or not as willing to pay the necessary cost to have that same level of enjoyment that like I'm having with Snap, right? Like, oh yeah, the Snap meta is not that bad right now. There are a lot of different decks to play, all this fun stuff. You're probably not resonating with that if the only deck you have is like a pool 3 destroy deck or something, right? You probably feel pretty differently than I do. Or if you're a new player. But auto battlers are really cool because you just can play the game and it's all cosmetic stuff. And I'm sure they make way less money because of it, but it really was striking to me just how easy it was to recommend it to a friend, and now I'm probably gonna, play some duos with him sometime, and he's enjoying it too. And it really, even though the gameplay is obviously, auto battlers are different than card games, it really just made clear to me how challenging it is for like to get other people into a card game. And then when you're adding on top of that challenge, all the baggage that Snap comes with that is unique to it compared to other card games, it's like why would I ever bother, man? It's not worth it. Like I don't enjoy getting to watch people go through all the steps of realizing how the economy works and how hard it is to get cards and all this stuff. It's like I just want to play a fun game, and it might be a little complex, but I've been really enjoying TFT for that. Like it's fun, it's free, and it does scratch a bit of that card game itch in terms of strategy.
It's not very accessible friendly. The writing.
Yeah, it's not. I'll say that. When you were talking about the bazaar, I was like, oh man, if you have issues with the bazaar in terms of keeping up, and also just like I think UI wise, it's not the cleanest for. There's so much I don't understand, and there's so much I don't know, and I'm looking forward to learning it. But it's definitely, if you want a simple auto battler, I don't think it's the one to play. It seems to be more of the complex. It's more on the complex side compared to something like I think Hearthstone Battlegrounds, which is a little simpler.
I mean, I don't think it's quite ready yet, but the Bazaar is going to be.
The Bazaar seems great, though. I've enjoyed it quite a bit, and I do think, especially if you don't like the pressure of having to like get everything done in between rounds and on a timer, the Bazaar is amazing for that. I think that game's going to do quite well, and it's actually the Bazaar is what got me more interested in auto battlers as a genre again. And I'm probably going to continue to play it as they continue to update it. But I think especially that type of game where it's like you can have all this fun at little to no cost, and then what's happening in Snap is people are just having less fun than they used to, and it's for a variety of reasons that are unique to each individual player. But people don't know what they want. They just know they want to have more fun again. And the easiest thing to point at is, well, I'm not having as much fun because I can't engage with all these new cards and I feel left out. But I mean, I think part of it is like, the gameplay isn't as fun as it used to be because you've played a bunch of it, because they have changed the gameplay quite a bit, adding Arsham into the mix. Definitely took away some of that fun for a lot of people. Like it's just the cause I think is obvious. It's just like, how do you have a big blanket solution to fix it? And I mean, truthfully, I don't think they know. And they've got to be scared after the Spotlight thing, because they took a long time to figure out the Spotlight thing. And I'm pretty sure compared to the original acquisition system, it lost them money. And at least the trade-off would be, well, maybe it didn't make us as much money as the original system did, but maybe it's bringing in more players, or maybe it's making a happier player base that's spending more. But I don't think either of those things happened long-term with Spotlights. And so now they're like, well, what if we change it again and it gets even worse?
Yeah.
And so not a good position to be in. But that's why they get paid, right? Is to figure it out. So here's hoping they do that, because I'll be honest, with other promising games on the horizon and viewership very clearly taking a bit of a nosedive from what I hear. I mean, I have a hard time really, I don't know, like I haven't been posting as much Snap YouTube stuff. I've mainly been streaming, and I would say you can notice that numbers are lower than they used to be across the board on streaming. But what's really stark to me is when you see people who are significantly bigger than me and more successful than me in content creation, like well above, when they're talking about a lot of these concerns and not seeing a sustainable future for Snap and covering it in content. When you see the people at the top saying that is a real wake-up call to a lot of people, because most of the small to mid-range people, like that's what they want to be, is to be in that position where they're making, more money for it to be sustainable or lucrative, because content's not it's an oversaturated field that, people don't make a lot of money off of for the majority. So when you're
Yeah.
seeing these people who are, successful at it and more successful than, 99.9% of people, when they're seeing like, I don't know, I don't know what the future is here. How are people who are barely getting by doing it as is right now? What are they supposed to think? Like, if it looks bad for the people at the top, it looks worse for everybody else, right? Because they aren't making the money off of the game. So it's not a great situation, and unfortunately, I think however long it takes for them to try and remedy it is going to feel longer than people want. Because I think if they had something, to tee up for early on next year, I think they probably wouldn't have given specifics, but I think that whole, hey, we've got another series drop coming Q1, to me, that more so says, all right, the system isn't changing in Q1. Like, that's what that tells me. Maybe I'll be wrong, but that tells me, all right, well, we're at least waiting until Q2 of the new year. And that would be the earliest. And it's like, you see how bad perception is now. Do you think it's going to get better in that time frame? Or do you think Second Dinner is going to do something dumb and then people are going to get mad about it again in that time frame? I think one of those things is much more likely to happen than the other.
If we look at history as an indicator, I mean, I'm not very optimistic.
Yeah. It's just such a shame, because so much of the reason why people care is because there is a passion for the game. And I think the reason so many people defended it for so long is because everybody, complainers, defenders, everybody, I think, wanted it to live up to this. Like, they saw the game as it could be like the next step in what card games are in a lot of ways, and they want it to fully live up to that. And it just, not only has it not lived up to that, it feels like it's just fallen shorter and shorter of it over time. And it's a lot harder to envision a future like where that turns around and it becomes, the best it can be, because the overwhelming consensus I see is like, hey, I love the game, I really don't like the people running it. Like, it's like the core gameplay is awesome, it's great, don't have a lot of complaints there. The acquisition and the decisions from the company, maybe not so much. And it didn't always used to be that way, right? Like, I think this also stems from the fact of how Second Dinner, part of their whole like marketing for this game was, hey, you remember Ben Brode, right? He was the Hearthstone guy. He did a whole rap about Hearthstone expansion when the community didn't get a new song or something.
Oh yeah.
Back in the day. Everyone remembers that. He likes grilled cheeses. He's a very charismatic guy, right? And so, well, what if we told you he was making his own company where he was free from the shackles of his oppressive corporate overlords at Blizzard? Wouldn't that be amazing to see what such a talented game developer could do without all the corporate greed that ruins games? I feel like that was the pitch. I mean, obviously they're not saying it exactly like that, but I feel like that was the idea a lot of people had behind Snap, was like, everyone hates Activision Blizzard. They have for such a long time.
Well,
because that company did so many bad things, right? And so it's like, it's easy to want to fight for like this underdog that's free from the corporate overlords. But, greed's a funny thing. It's not exclusive to the corporate overlords. Everyone wants a piece of the pie. And I think if you asked what people like thought of Second Dinner, shortly after Marvel Snap launched, compared to what people think of them now, I think a lot less people are viewing them as this scrappy underdog that is really making a name for itself. Now they are the corporate entity,
Yeah.
like it feels like that's what they have become, and maybe that's what they always were. But I think a lot of people like to build that story up of like, the small guys are good, the big guys are bad. But unfortunately, it's not that black and white.
they've got this killer IP with Marvel, and they've been able to ride that wave for a long time. But especially as we run out of like the classic characters that everyone knows and into the more obscure ones, like they're only going to be able to ride that wave for so long before they're actually going to have to like.
Nah, they'll do, Nate, what they do in Pokemon.
What's that?
They'll just make a new Spider-Man card. It will be Spider-Man, but it will do something different.
Spider-Man EX.
They don't even have to do Spider-Man EX. Like, do you know how many like EXs
Variants.
there are of the same Pokemon like
it's
that
true.
do different things? Like, they can just yeah, they. I think that
you're not wrong. They'll do Invincible Iron Man and Spectacular Spider-Man and yeah.
yeah, but I think that I hope that we get to that point, but they've got some hills to climb before we get there. One interesting thing that came out of the series drop that I wanted to touch on also was a new phenomenon that we haven't seen happen in Snap, which happens in most games where there's an agitated player base. Marvel Snap on Steam got completely review bombed. Like, not a little bit, but like a lot of it. And I don't actually follow review bombing, so I couldn't say if this one like is an outlier in that regard, but like it got review bombed. And I mean, like, the thing is this, like, people will say like, wow, like people will know it's just a bunch of entitled whiny babies. Here's the thing. I don't know how you guys like I don't know if you browse Steam much for games or what happens, but if I'm interested in a game and I see it gets review bombed, I usually assume there's a reason why, and I look into that reason, and sometimes it's stupid and sometimes it's concerning. And I think if I was a player interested in Marvel Snap, I probably wouldn't be looking at it on the Steam store. But that's an aside. I would look at why the game was review bombed, and I probably would be concerned about the reason because I think that there's some there. So I think it's noteworthy to call that out because I think that review bombing can be unfortunate, but it's very effective at calling attention to something, whether it's legit or superfluous.
It gets the message out there. And this is super true. I can back this up with lived experience because I had a friend today message me like, this is someone who has played Marvel Snap, I don't know, a few times, probably not any time recently at all. I don't even know if in the past year. But they knew I covered the game. They thought it sounded cool. They played a bit of it. They liked it. I don't think they kept up with it. Probably not an uncommon experience. He literally messaged me today saying, "Dude, what's going on with Marvel Snap? I saw the it's been being bombed on Steam." And I'm like, this is someone who was a casual player who had no horse in this race and wasn't even involved with the game at this time. And so it's like when they're messaging me about this, asking what's up, it's like, I think whether you agree with it or not, review bombing has an effect there of like calling attention to an issue.
Like I'll give an example.
And people aren't I also think it's tough because like there have been examples of review bombing where people like jump on a hate train and not actually play the game. Like they'll buy it.
It's easy to kind of see through,
it is. Yeah, it totally is because you'll look at the reviews and it'll be like 0.5 hours played or something. But the funny thing with Marvel Snap and these negative reviews is a lot of these negative reviews are people with like 100+ hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's not just people who are hopping in to join on the hate. It's like, hey, I played this game for a long time and I'm kind of fed up with it. Like they're not just saying it just to say it. They're saying it because this is how they feel and they want to be heard. But unfortunately, Second Dinner is real good at quote unquote listening, but not so much hearing.
Yeah, I'll give a good example where like a review bomb or negative or collection negative feedback makes me think twice. So like those who probably most people don't know, not that I talk about other games, for the last, I don't know, half year, maybe a little longer, I've been playing a game called Bloons 6. You see it on the App Store. It's a tower defense game.
It's so good.
I downloaded it because I wanted to play a tower defense game, and this one was heralded as like the greatest tower defense game ever. And I can attest to the quality of it. But the thing is that when you get really into like the Bloons deep cut, there are characters, and there's almost this kind of like pseudo lore, and they released a new game, the studio.
It's the card one, right?
Yeah, they about a month ago, a card game, and I was like, oh, that's really cool because they actually have like, you know, a lot of assets that
They
could
have an
be
IP
used in this.
around it, right? Like we've
Yeah,
probably talked about this before, where it's impossible to launch like a big card game or something without an IP. That's why part of why Snap did really well. Hearthstone had Warcraft.
Pokemon is
Pokemon's
Pokemon. Yeah.
Pokemon.
So it's kind of a ballsy thing to do, right? And it turns out that it seems like the game's not very good, at least right now. And most of the people who are playing this game are people that are invested in this kind of like weird sub IP, and I think it's given me like some pause. It's like, well, okay, I'll wait and see how things kind of develop, and I think that it where there's smoke, there's fire. I think that's that old expression. And right now, on the Marvel Snap Steam page, there's no smoke. It's just fire.
It's just fire. Yeah.
Yeah. You're the guy who's walking into the apartment with the 5 pizza boxes, and the whole place is like burning down, and it's bedlam. So, yeah, it's rough. It's rough right now, and I don't really like so. I suppose if we try to end on something maybe a little more positive, if possible. Um, is there anything that you guys are looking forward to in Snap? Like, I'm not saying that ironically, like genuinely. Like, is there something that you're looking like, maybe an upcoming season theme, or a card you have your eye on, or a variant you've been waiting for? Like anything. Like, I'm fishing here, guys. Like,
There's
Okay,
a
wait.
couple like really stupid cards coming up that I like, the Bruce
Oh,
Banner
here I've
and
got one for you guys.
Bruce
Here.
Banner and Doom 2099.
no, Bruce Banner is not something I'm looking forward to.
You gotta
my
show this
God.
card, Nate. This is the card people should be excited about. I sent it in the Discord.
Yeah, I saw that. That's hilarious.
You gotta show the one card that everybody can't wait to get their hands on. It's gonna be next level.
We could do a whole thing with that.
We totally could. Maybe we should at some point.
Oh man, what if Snap had like a crossover event with Pokemon TCG Pocket, right? That's some real fanfic level stuff right there.
Yeah, right.
Never gonna happen. We're getting the Marvel Rivals crossover, which I don't know. Maybe some people are excited about. I can't play
I have
games like
something to
that.
say about that for sure.
Yeah,
But yeah,
what do
this
you
is the
mean?
crossover we really need. You need this is break glass in case of emergency for Marvel Snap. It's just like they need to call up the Pokemon heads, and we've seen the meta presence Mewtwo has made, so let's just slap them together with Thanos as a little tag team.
I want to see Jinx Thanos. That may as well go full meme.
Yeah, right.
Purple and purple.
Hey, Mewtwo's purple. He's purple. Look at that tail. It's the same color as Thanos' skin.
Hey, I'm down to make some combo cards if you want to do that.
Yeah, we should definitely do that. It'd be fun. But I don't know. In terms of stuff actually excited for about Snap, there's really not too much there for me. I'm excited to see what happens to the player base when Marvel Rivals comes out, because it's such a funny discussion I see with people. They're like, no, you guys don't understand. It's a different game. You don't get it. Like, card gamers aren't going to go play this totally other game. And it's like, I don't think these people fully grasp how many people play this game because it's Marvel, and it has a good core to it. And I only played a bit of it, but so far in my experience with it, Marvel Rivals hits those two notes very well. It is capitalizing very hard on the Marvel IP with characters people care about and like an interesting art style. And the bare bones of it as a hero shooter seem pretty solid. Like, I don't think the market's clamoring for more of them, but a lot of people are excited about it and find it fun, and it's free, and there's no pay to win element. It's all cosmetic driven. And so I think you're going to see a lot of people defect to that. I mean, you just saw one of Snap's biggest people cozy, be like, yeah, I'm going all in on this. And he was like, hey, I'm not stopping Snap or anything. I'm still gonna do Snap stuff. But I'd bet dollars to donuts if Rivals really takes off for him, I imagine the Snap stuff falls by the wayside, if not stops entirely. And then
I feel
it's I think people are going to be surprised at how many. I think there's so many card game heads that are like, it's not a card game, why would I care, that they underestimate how many Marvel heads there
yeah,
are
they're
who are
all
driven by the IP. It's just like you talk about with Bloons. Like the Bloons card game, it sounds like got off on the wrong foot, and it's really like just appealing to people who are already really into the universe stuff. But like I've talked to so many people who are driven to Snap because of the Marvel IP, and I think many of
I
those
feel
same
like
people will try out Rivals
I,
instead.
I feel like I gotta try the Bloons card game now and report
I
back.
tried like the tutorial of it.
Oh, really?
It
It
didn't hit
was
for me.
didn't
And
hit.
I love balloons. Like the regular tower defense is pretty fire.
Oh, God, I
It's
can't.
a wonderful
It's
game.
so much game. I can't like. I'm doing like the events they have, and like I'm collecting trophies, and I'm getting like little pets for like my characters. Like, and this is like I spent $5 on this game, and I've put like 150 hours into it, and there's just no end to
Yeah,
it.
the return on investment in something like balloons is
Um,
really, really high. And you do have to compete with the other games too. Like here's an example. What if someone decides, hey, I still want my card game fix, but they're noticing a game like Marvel Rivals or one of a million other big games that are coming out? What if that game's taking up more of my time? And then I'm looking at the options for card games, and it's like, well, I have Marvel Snap, which demands quite a bit of you in terms of keeping up with it on a week to week basis. And if you really want to get your money's worth for the free stuff, which you kind of need to try and keep up with the game, or you could go do Pokemon Pocket and open 2 packs a day for free and also complete your dailies while doing that. And you don't even have to play the game if you don't have time for it. You could just take 2 minutes to open the packs and you're good for the day. And let me tell you, when I have a lot of other things going on or other games I want to play, Pocket's the one getting that engagement because it requires so little of me and it's just a purely positive experience. Even if, let's say hypothetically, let's say I don't like the meta in Pocket right now. Let's say I really don't like playing the game. I still would get some enjoyment out of opening the packs for fun, and it completes my dailies at the same time. And like I don't feel
like
that way about Pocket.
Hearthstone.
Pocket's fine, but it's like even if I didn't like it, you can still engage with what the game asks of you at such a low bar in terms of what you have to do. And then I think that low bar has made a lot of people who've tried it out realize that Snap's bar is higher
Yeah,
than they thought it was. And the
yeah.
more stuff competing for your time, the more annoying that high bar is. Like you probably realize this too, right? Once you stop playing Snap, I think you realize how much it actually like asks of you to get everything out of it.
Oh yeah. I will probably never engage with Conquest again unless there's something I really want out of it.
Yeah, I feel that.
Um,
I haven't engaged Conquest in ages.
Yeah,
like
I haven't even got the variant for this month yet, and now I'm
it's
kind
a
of
Jane
like,
Foster again. Like, I mean, how many Jane? Like, it's like you said before. Like, I already got like 3 Jane Fosters that I
yeah.
really like. So, I mean, I'm not. It's not. Doesn't
But you can get
feel.
another one in the diner, Blue.
Oh,
Just
I'm
grind
not. Yeah.
500 million bubs.
Once I get King Etri,
Retreat, yeah,
I'm
you're out.
done. Etri, I'm out. Yeah, I think that I don't know. What am I looking forward to in Snap? I
Doom.
can't.
I'm looking forward to the community's reaction to when Doom 2099 breaks the game. Because
Oh
we're
my
gonna go from
goodness.
we're only getting one balance patch next month too because of the holidays, and it's right before he comes out. I'm pretty sure. I think it's like the week before, or like a few days before, maybe. I'm not sure, or maybe like 2 days after. It's right. It's near his release,
So
and
we're gonna have a Merry Christmas then.
whatever happens during the Marvel Rivals month, it's gonna be like that for a full month. So, if you're enjoying the metagame right now, I would say get
Get
your
a
fill.
get a
Because I
good
don't know, I'm not confident it's going to be this level of enjoyable come December. Like some of
get
the
your
Doom is
Super
just such
variant out.
Doom is
Yeah.
such a messed up card that I think is going to make for a worse metagame, but I truly hope I'm wrong, because I love the idea they're giving me a reason to play Original Doom again, because Original Doom was like the goated 6-drop in the early days and for so much of the game's life, and now he's kind of in the trash can. Like, people don't play Doctor Doom anymore. He's just been power crept out.
Yeah.
So releasing a new power crept card that has synergy with it to bring him back is like, that's cool, but it's only cool if it doesn't completely like break the game in half. And many of the people I regard as like good players have, I think, pretty fair concerns about what that card might do to the game. So
Yeah.
if nothing else, hey, we that's my silver lining for Snap, is like everything might be falling apart around morale and acquisition, but at least we got, 1 month of a pretty solid, varied meta where, aside from the usual Arsham BS, like, I really don't have a thing to complain about in terms of the metagame. I think it's varied. I think there's so many different decks you can play. There's a variety in play style. It's just like, it genuinely, I think, is maybe the best Snap has been all year in terms of like stuff you can do and find success with, and room to experiment, and you don't feel like you're running into the same deck that is just beating you into the ground like every other game. So that's my positive note for Snap. Looking to the future, maybe not so much.
Well, yeah. I tried. I what can I say? I hope that when we gather again in a few weeks' time, we'll have something a little bit more positive to rally around. I guess I'll just end by saying that it was really nice to come back after taking 2.5 months off. But the game, like that's a real turd to polish. Like, the game's still fun, but everything that ensconces the gameplay and the collection system and the monetization and the communication and the game modes, like, it's pretty rough. So yeah, we'll see how things develop, and I think that the next big marker over the horizon is really the Doom 2099 release, because I mean, it's really hard to predict cards' impact on the game, but like, sometimes a card is so broken that you can see over the horizon the havoc it's going to wreak. I remember early on in the Born to be Cosmo life, episode 2 or 3, we talked about Zabu before it came out. And the rest is, shall we say, history. And I'm getting kind of some Zabu vibes from this Doom card based on just how people are talking about it. And just reading it, your eyes kind of pop out of your head. So better save
out.
those keys. Because I think it's going to be one of those, whether you love it or hate it, if you're going to play Snap while it's like the forced card, you're going to have it probably.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you're going to have it or tech around it. I don't even think there's going to be a great way to tech around it that isn't also playing it. But who knows?
With Super Scroll.
Yeah, maybe they change it. Maybe something else changes. I'm not confident in that happening. But
You gotta mystique your Super Scroll.
if you want a card to save for, that's probably going to be a hit.
And then you'll have to have a rogue.
2099. And Galacta. Yeah. Galacta, the next season pass card, I think also seems very strong. It's just a 4/6 that gives +3 to your first card every turn, and it's like, yeah, that's pretty good. That's a lot of stats, and as we've seen, stats are good in a game all about winning with points. It's
kind of like good. Better Gwenpool.
Yeah, kind of. It's like Gwenpool is more high roll with things like Mysterio or whatever, but this is concentrated and controllable, and you can very easily do it on a Galactus, who I imagine won't find a ton of success. And maybe that would be so funny if like the monkey's paw curls and the answer to Doom 2099, because it's so go wide, is Galactus. If that's what, can you imagine, with how many people absolutely detest Galactus, how funny it would be if it was just the Marvel Rivals battle of Doom 2099 versus Galactus? That would be so funny. I kind of hope it happens now.
Oh man. Well, you know what? Like, if I wasn't like convinced that Galacta's worth getting, I'm looking at these variants that are
She has some
coming.
good ones, and the
So
Rian
there's
one
the
is in the pass, which is dope.
oh sweet, is it? All right, that's the best one. But there's this other one, Creative House Pocket. That looks great, kind of like a '90s kind of anime style. And then they're all really good. The Spotlight, there's a Spotlight.
Yeah, it's good art. It's I think a character people like. It is very funny that. So I don't think this is a character who has a whole ton of lore and backstory, but this was, I think she was made around '09 or so, and it was back when creative like elements were doing weird things with stuff like this. So there's like an official Galacta Twitter account that hasn't been used in years, and
Oh wow.
oh, God help you if you look it up because it's so cringe, man. It's so
Okay,
very.
I'll
It's like that.
pass.
It's like that episode of what's it? It's like that meme template. I think it's from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, where it's like this. In this episode, we have the writer's barely disguised fetish, and that's what reading the Twitter felt like to me for the character of Galacta.
Wow.
But I thought that was kind of funny because now they have, a main role in Marvel Rivals as the announcer, and now they're being the season pass card and Snap. So if you want to laugh or a little bit of cringe, highly suggest looking up Galacta Twitter account official, or I don't know the actual name, but it's very amusing.
Well, yeah.
I think we
So
got there. I think that's everything,
yeah.
right?
Yep.
Yeah, for those that stuck around for this 2-hour vortex of negativity, thank you. We appreciate it. I honestly wish I had more positive things to say. I wish that I could be like, well, actually, guys, coming back after a few months is easy, and I got caught up, but I can't. So, yeah. I definitely hope we at least have one more show before the Christmas season, and yeah, we can hopefully see if our 2099 predictions came true. And yeah, I don't think I have anything else at this time, so I will invite you all to keep it Cosmo out there. You'll have people that will disagree with your opinions on the game. Try to be kind with them, even if they're not with you.
Just
And
believe what you believe in, like
yeah,
if you're happy with the state of the game, don't let other people bring you down. I'm sure that's a small group for people who are happy and listening to this podcast, but happy about the game, that is. But if you're in that group, hey, don't let other people bring you down. Get what you could enjoy out of it. Like, I got a comment from someone who was like, yeah, you're pretty spot on with the stuff about the economy. Honestly, I've started engaging with the game less. I mainly just play my old Thanos deck or my old Surfer deck, and I don't engage with the new releases anymore. And I have some fun that way, but yeah, they're just like kind of disconnected from all the current stuff because it became too much of a headache to keep up with. Or conversely, if you're on the other side, it's like, don't let someone tell you don't have a right to how you feel. I feel like there
yeah,
was so much of that in the Marvel Snap community for so long, of people being
yeah,
like, no, your complaints aren't justified. These problems aren't real. And then what do you know? All of a sudden, these problems are actually real and are justified. It's just an unfortunate reality where, I mean, this happens in everything. People don't want to believe something until they feel the personal impact of it. And now more people are feeling that personal impact. And all we can do is hope that it leads us to a better system and a better game, because I think the core of the game is really good and it deserves better than it has been given the past 2 years. So
Yeah.
I would love for them to prove myself and everyone else who thinks they don't have a proper good rework in them to prove us wrong. Genuinely, it would make me happy to be proved wrong, that they could figure it out. But yeah, I don't think the hopes are that high. So temper expectations. But it is what it is. Games are meant to be fun. If you're not having fun with it, sometimes it's better to explore other avenues. I've been doing that. Blue did that. A lot of other people are doing that, and it's rough because of how punishing the game is when you like actually leave. But at the end of the day, if the game's feeling more like a job than fun, I think it's good to reevaluate if it's really doing it for you anymore, if it's worth keeping up with, because no game should really do that. And unfortunately, the live service cycle is all about that. It's all about creating that FOMO and routine and making people want to stay on the treadmill. But there does exist a world off of it.
Well said. Well said.
All right. Enough said, bub, indeed.
Yeah, well, until next random series drop recording. Keep it Cosmo, everybody.
Yeah.
Flexible recording schedule.
Plus flexible podcasting schedule. Yeah.
Keep it Cosmo.
Keep it Cosmo.
Thank you all.
Enough said, bub.